All right, strap in everyone, because today we're diving headfirst into some seriously wild territory.
Oh, you mean like wilder than usual?
Yep. Think ancient aliens, gold-obsessed space travelers, and a whole lot of questionable labor practices.
Sounds intriguing. Where are we starting this deep dive?
Well, with the idea that we humans might owe our existence to, wait for it, aliens.
Aliens. All right, you've got my attention, but not just any aliens, right?
Right, not just any aliens.
Okay.
Today's all about the Anunnaki, as interpreted by Zechariah Sitchin and his Earth Chronicles.
Ah, Sitchin. He's the guy who looked at ancient Sumerian myths and saw, well, evidence of extraterrestrial intervention.
Exactly. And let's be clear, we're not here to say whether Sitchin was right or wrong, or that you should believe any of this.
More like we're putting on our explorer hats and taking a look at these ideas with a healthy dose of skepticism and maybe a sense of humor, too.
Definitely a sense of humor.
Yeah.
So let's rewind back to the very beginning, to Sumer, the OG civilization.
Sumer, popping up around 3500 BC, seemingly out of nowhere. They had agriculture, writing, even advanced astronomy.
Pretty impressive for a civilization that supposedly just popped up, right? Does make you wonder, where did they get all that from?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? And that's where those intriguing cuneiform tablets come in.
Those ancient clay tablets filled with stories of gods, kings, and, according to Sitchin, a whole lot of clues about ancient aliens.
It's from these tablets that Sitchin gets much of his evidence for the Anunnaki. These powerful beings from a planet called Nibiru.
Nibiru. The planet that allegedly swings by Earth every 3,600 years. Just to keep things interesting.
Well, those visits might explain a few things in our history if you believe Sitchin's interpretation.
But let's be real for a second. These Anunnaki weren't just dropping by for a friendly visit, right?
According to Sitchin, no. Their main reason for coming to Earth was gold. It was the ultimate cosmic shopping trip.
Gold. So they weren't after our technology or our culture, just our bling.
Apparently they needed it to fix their atmosphere or something like that. Space travel is rough on a planet's exterior.
I guess so. Although I'm not sure how gold fixes an atmosphere. Seems like a lot of effort just for some shiny rocks. But hey, who am I to judge intergalactic home improvement projects?
Right. Maybe gold was just really valuable in their interstellar economy. Or maybe they just had, like, really good interior decorators.
Maybe their planet was just due for a makeover. So we've got these ancient Sumerian tablets telling stories of these gold-hungry aliens called the Anunnaki, but what were these Anunnaki actually like?
Not your typical little green men, that's for sure. Imagine beings with lifespans of, get this, 36,000 years.
36,000 years. That's longer than some civilizations have existed.
Huh.
I wonder what their retirement plan looked like.
Sitchin attributed their longevity to time dilation, suggesting they spent time near a black hole.
Black holes, time dilation. It's all starting to sound like a science fiction novel.
But remember, we're talking about mythology here, ancient stories that try to make sense of the world.
Right, right. But still, 36,000 years. That's a long time to be mining gold. You'd think they'd get bored.
Maybe they had cosmic Netflix to keep them entertained, but hey, at least they wouldn't have to worry about deadlines.
True. But there's got to be more to this story than just a bunch of long-lived aliens digging for gold, right? What about us? Where do humans fit into this whole cosmic saga?
That's where things get even more interesting. According to Sitchin, the Anunnaki didn't exactly love manual labor.
Makes sense. Who wants to spend 36,000 years swinging a pickaxe? So they needed workers.
Workers, yes, but it wasn't a straightforward hiring process.
Oh, what do you mean?
While Sitchin claims the Anunnaki's first attempt involved some genetic experimentation, they tried to combine their DNA with something a little unexpected.
Unexpected how? Like they outsourced to a different planet's temp agency.
Think more along the lines of dinosaurs.
Dinosaurs, as in T-Rex and Stegosaurus.
You got it. They supposedly tried to splice Anunnaki DNA with dinosaur DNA. The result? Lizard people.
Lizard people. Okay, now things are getting really weird. And this is their plan for a workforce. Dino hybrids digging for gold. You'd think they'd have better options.
Right. But apparently, these lizard people weren't exactly the ideal employees. They lacked a crucial skill for any workforce.
Oh, what's that? The ability to use a cosmic pickaxe.
Nope. They couldn't reproduce. No baby lizard people. So much for sustainable workforce. Which leads us to the next chapter in the Anunnaki saga.
The chapter where we, the non-scaly podcast-listening humans, finally enter the picture. I'm all ears.
Me too. This is where Enki, the Anunnaki god of wisdom, steps in. He's kind of like their chief scientist, always tinkering away in his lab. And in Sitchin's version, he's the one who figures out how to create a more, let's say, reliable workforce.
Ah, so Enki was the one who finally figured out how to make humans. I guess we should be grateful.
Maybe. Although, according to Sitchin, there was another early prototype, Adam and Lilith.
Adam and Lilith. Wait a minute, that sounds familiar. Isn't that straight out of, like, religious texts?
Yep. But Sitchin throws in a twist. He suggests that Adam and Lilith might have been part of a lost race known as the Lemurians.
Lemurians. Okay, now we're talking lost civilizations, ancient aliens, forbidden knowledge. It's all connected, at least in Sitchin's world.
Exactly. But even among the Anunnaki, there were different ideas about what to do with these new creations.
So, like a cosmic debate on the ethics of genetic engineering? Were they worried about playing God?
Maybe not in those exact terms. But Sitchin portrays Enki, the creator, as focused on, getting the gold mined. While Enlil, another big player in the Anunnaki hierarchy, became almost protective of these new humans.
So one saw them as workers, and the other saw them as something more. Fascinating. But where does Lilith fit into all of this? She's kind of a legendary figure, rebellious, mysterious, so there's got to be more to her story.
Oh, there definitely is. And it's a story that gets pretty wild. But that's a story for another time. We'll pick up Lilith's tale and her role in this cosmic drama in the next part of our deep dive.
Welcome back to our exploration of all things Anunnaki. Last time, we left off with a bit of a cliffhanger. Remember Lilith?
Oh, yeah. The first woman, created by Enki, stuck in the mines, not exactly thrilled with the whole situation. What happened to her? Did she lead a lizard people revolt?
Well, not quite a revolt, but Sitchin suggests that Lilith didn't just sit back and accept her fate. She had other plans.
Oh, and those plans were spill the cosmic tea.
According to Sitchin, she decided to pay a little visit to Adam, who was still hanging out in the Anunnaki's version of paradise. You know, Eden.
Eden. Wait, like the Garden of Eden with the forbidden fruit and all that?
That's the one.
Yeah.
But Sitchin throws in his own twist, of course. He suggests that Lilith, fueled by a sense of betrayal and maybe a bit of jealousy, decided to tempt Eve with the forbidden fruit.
Eve, as in Adam's new companion, the one made from his rib. Yep. In Lilin, remember him, he decided Adam needed a companion. But instead of, creating a whole new being, he went the rib route.
The rib route. Classic. But why? Was it a cosmic cost-cutting measure?
Who knows? Maybe ribs are on sale in the cosmic supermarket? But anyway, Lilith shows up, sees Eve, and things get interesting.
So it's like a love triangle, except with ancient aliens and forbidden knowledge thrown in.
Pretty much. But Sitchin argues that this whole forbidden fruit thing wasn't just about disobeying the rules. It was about something much bigger.
Bigger than a cosmic love triangle. What could be bigger than that?
Consciousness. Sitchin suggests that the fruit symbolized knowledge, self-awareness. It's like biting into that apple or whatever the fruit was, awakened something in humanity.
So we went from being mindless worker bees to, well, us, capable of thinking, questioning, creating.
Exactly. We got an upgrade thanks to Lilith and her rebellious act. But not everyone was thrilled about this upgrade.
I bet Enlil wasn't doing a happy dance. You know, the guy who thought humans should just stick to mining gold and not ask too many questions.
He was not pleased, to say the least. Sitchin portrays him as seeing this newfound awareness as a threat. Humans were getting a bit too clever for their own good.
Right. You can't have humans questioning the meaning of life when there's gold to be mined.
Apparently not, and that's where things take a bit of a dark turn. Sitchin links Enlil's growing displeasure with humanity to a very familiar story.
Oh no, don't tell me he's going to unleash some kind of cosmic punishment. I'm getting a bad feeling about this.
Yeah, your feeling is justified. Sitchin connects Enlil's anger to the story of the Great Flood. You know, the one with Noah's Ark and 2 of every animal.
Wait, the flood? Are you saying that was the Anunnaki's doing? That's not exactly how I remember it from Sunday school.
Sitchin puts a bit of a spin on the classic tale. He suggests that Enlil, seeing humanity as a noisy, rebellious bunch, decided it was time for a reset.
A reset. As in, wipe out almost everyone and start over. Seems a bit extreme, even for God.
It does, doesn't it? But hey, these are beings who live for tens of thousands of years. Maybe a global flood just seemed like a minor inconvenience to them.
Maybe. But what about Noah? He got a warning, right? He built that giant ark and saved himself and a bunch of animals.
Ah, yes. And that's where our old friend Enki comes back into the picture. Sitchin portrays him as opposing Enlil's plan. You know, the whole destroy humanity thing.
So Enki was like the original whistleblower. Except instead of leaking classified documents, he was leaking flood warnings.
Something like that. He supposedly tipped off Noah, told him how to build the ark and save a remnant of humanity.
Makes you wonder why he risked it. Wasn't that a bit, career limiting for a god, going against the big boss's plan?
Maybe he just had a soft spot for humans. Or maybe he just enjoyed a bit of chaos. Who
A
knows?
god with a rebellious streak. I could see it.
Yeah.
But if the flood was meant to wipe out humanity, how did we manage to, bounce back?
Well, that's where Noah and his ark come in. They represent the seeds of a new beginning, a second chance for humanity.
So humanity gets a do-over, courtesy of a big boat and a compassionate, if somewhat mischievous, god. It's a pretty wild story.
It is, and it raises some big questions about the nature of humanity, the role of the divine, and maybe even the importance of having a good lifeboat, just in case.
A lifeboat, or maybe a good spaceship. You never know when those Anunnaki might decide to drop by again.
That's a thought. But let's not get ahead of ourselves. We've been focusing on Sitchin's interpretation of these ancient myths. But are there other ways to look at them?
Like maybe the Anunnaki weren't aliens at all. Maybe they were just powerful kings or metaphors for something else. I am all for exploring other perspectives. Where do we go from here?
Well, that's a great question. There are a lot of theories out there about ancient astronauts, lost civilizations, and the mysteries of our past, and we'll delve into some of those alternative perspectives in the final part of our deep dive.
All right, welcome back to our Anunnaki Deep Dive. Part 3, the final chapter of our cosmic saga. It's been a wild ride, hasn't it? Lizard people, floods, forbidden fruit. Just your typical Tuesday.
It certainly has. But like any good story, it's time to bring things to a close. And, maybe add a little bit of reality to the mix.
Reality. Ah, come on. Don't ruin the fun. But okay, I get it. We've been deep in Sitchin's world, but there are other perspectives out there.
Right. And while Sitchin's ideas are fascinating, they've definitely sparked some debate. Shall we say not everyone's on board with the whole ancient astronaut theory?
So not everyone thinks our ancestors were hanging out with gold-obsessed aliens. What do the skeptics say?
Well, for starters, they question Sitchin's interpretation of those Sumerian texts. They argue that he might have cherry-picked certain passages to fit his narrative.
Cherry-picked? You mean like he focused on the parts that supported his theory and maybe left out some of the less convenient details?
It's a common critique, especially when you're dealing with ancient languages and stories that are thousands of years old. There's always room for interpretation, right?
Yeah, I guess so. It's like those online quizzes. What ancient god are you? Depending on how you answer the questions, you could end up as Zeus or a minor deity no one's ever heard of.
Exactly. And remember, Sitchin wasn't an archaeologist or a historian. He had a background in economics and journalism.
So maybe he wasn't the best person to be deciphering ancient Sumerian texts. Kind of like asking a plumber to perform brain surgery.
That's a vivid analogy. But yeah, some scholars argue that a deeper understanding of the cultural context is crucial. You can't just translate words literally. You need to understand the symbolism, the metaphors, the whole shebang.
Right, right. Context is key. But okay, let's say we put the texts aside for a minute. What about the hard evidence? Has anyone found proof of Nibiru, the Anunnaki home planet, like a cosmic real estate listing or something?
Well, astronomers have been looking. And so far, nothing. No mysterious planet lurking on the edge of our solar system, waiting to swing by and say hello.
No Nibiru. Bummer.
Yeah.
I was kind of hoping for a close encounter of the Anunnaki kind. But okay, what about the Anunnaki themselves? Any sign of them? Any ancient alien selfies with the Sphinx?
If only. Unfortunately, finding solid evidence for ancient astronauts is tricky. We're talking about beings that supposedly visited Earth thousands of years ago.
So it's all based on speculation and a few open to interpretation artifacts.
Pretty much. And that's where the ancient astronaut theory runs into trouble. It's like trying to build a house on a foundation of, I don't know, clouds.
It does make you wonder, though. What if we're looking at all of this the wrong way? What if those ancient myths weren't meant to be taken literally?
That's a great point. Maybe they were symbolic, metaphorical, ways for our ancestors to explain the world around them.
Right, like those stories about gods throwing lightning bolts.
Right.
We know it's not Zeus up there with a giant taser,
Yeah,
but it was their way of explaining storms.
exactly. Maybe the Anunnaki were just their way of explaining things they couldn't understand. Natural disasters, advanced technology, you name it.
Makes sense. But even if the Anunnaki weren't real, there's still something about those ancient myths that captures the imagination, right?
Absolutely. They tapped into our fascination with the unknown, with the possibility that we're not alone in the universe. And they make us question what we think we know about our own history.
Maybe that's the real legacy of the Anunnaki, even if they were just a product of our ancestors' imaginations. They keep us curious, keep us questioning, keep us looking up at the stars and wondering.
That's a great way to put it. And who knows? Maybe someday we'll uncover evidence that completely rewrites our understanding of history. Until then, the mystery remains.
Well, on that note, I think it's time to wrap up our deep dive into the world of the Anunnaki. It's been a wild ride, full of speculation, ancient mysteries, and maybe even a few laughs along the way.
It certainly has. Thanks for joining us on this cosmic journey.
And to all our listeners out there, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep your minds open to the infinite possibilities of the universe. Who knows what mysteries we'll uncover next time on the Deep Dive?